Okay, welcome everyone to the Tokyo Jazz.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. That just cut off completely. What the hell is that?
I tried to push. Through. I tried to push through a tickly cough, but halfway,
God.
I sort of panicked halfway. You know, like when you stop in the middle of the road and then more than likely get hit by a car. You have to. You never hesitate. I shouldn't have stopped. Hang on, I'll try again. Okay, welcome everyone to Tokyo Jazz Joints podcast. We are on episode 95. We're still in the lovely region of Kansai. We're in the beautiful and historic city of Kyoto. It's day 2 of our trip, and we have just, if you listened to the previous episode most recently, finished up at Yamato-ya, and we're on our way to a place that was highlighted to me by a guy called Donald, a good friend and supporter of the project, who listens to the podcast religiously, I would say, perhaps, and in a good way, obviously. In a good way. Religiously is not the right word. He listens to it when it comes out. I don't know. That's not religiously. Anyway, he
enthusiastically.
Enthusiastically, yeah. Well, yes. I don't know, because it depends. It probably depends on the episode whether it's enthusiastic or not. But anyway, he highlighted this place to me, and I just, without really knowing that much about it, recommended to several other people who had asked me before we managed to get to, do you have any recommendations? Most notably, Aileen, who, again, is a supporter of the listening events that I'm doing in Belfast, and as a result of those, took herself off to Japan last year. And this is one of the places she went. But before we get to it, James, I have this picture of you. I mean, the best part of the picture is you still have this paper bag that you picked up in Santa Monica.
Is that where the art pepper
carrying
record
this paper? It's like
the one I bought in Santa Monica. Oh,
it's like a department store. It's like a department store paper bag. But
you gotta send that to me. You gotta send that to me. No, so for people who are not, so people may be listening not sequentially. We covered in episode 94 the start of a very, very long day, starting in Osaka.
Let them go back and listen. Why are you explaining that?
And then I'm carrying this record with me because I only bought one record, so I get the crappy little paper bag. You got a nice proper bag with handles.
Do you remember the record was? I hadn't realized that's what the record was. Do you remember what it was? Of course you do, right?
Yeah. It was Art Pepper.
No, it wasn't. It was McCoy Tyner.
What? Oh my God! Well, it was McCoy Tyner. Yeah. Wait. No. Then I must have bought more than one. Then because I bought more.
I've got this picture of you standing like.
Jesus, I look really grumpy in that picture.
It's not so much grumpy. It's like why did we stop?
I have no idea. Oh, okay. You know what? We've already gone.
Is it because it's called Tommy?
It was a long day. Okay. First of all, we're all out of time. We actually killed some time. Okay. First, after. Wow. All right. This is podcast.
Hang on, I've got a worse one. I've got a worse one. I've got you doing an early 90s kind of hip hop pose. Hang on.
Oh, no.
Here we go. There's another one.
Again, vintage podcast.
This tiny scooter. This tiny scooter in the background.
So listen, we're moving from Yamato-ya back to the center of Kyoto, but we did have to kill some time because it wasn't open yet. And then you, being the professional photographer you are, had to go pop into a quick look at the Kyoto. What is it called? The big photo expo that was going on. Do you remember?
Kyotography.
Yes. And I declined to go in due to the crowds and just went off to a convenience store to try and get a Genki drink to sort of replenish the energy. So we did kill some time, maybe about an hour or so before heading back to the joint. And I think that must be when we took the picture because we were just bumming around, wandering up the alleyways, waiting around. But I just don't know why I look so grumpy in there.
But I thought it was something to do with Like, why? I can't remember why we specifically stopped outside this place. And I have about 10 of these photographs of you holding this record and the paper bag.
It's a beautiful, Kyoto building, snack bar called Tommy.
I know,
nice
but
sign.
it's not exactly like...
That could have been it. I don't know. I think we were just wasting time. It's just Buddha, as they say here.
It just seems
going up and down the alleyways.
Seems a really odd... This is an odd way to waste time, but I thought it was something to do with the name of the place.
This was the alleyway for your extremely predictable. Do you remember this, Philip? Because I saw it coming a mile away. We were on the alleyway, and there was an international couple. I don't know if they were tourists. They could have been living in Kyoto, but an international couple, and the guy was fiddling with a baby stroller, a really big baby stroller, and the lady was holding the baby in the middle of the road. And as we approached them, I knew it was coming. I was counting it down in my brain, 3, 2, 1, and sure enough, you came out with God, what did people have no sense of space?
Well, yeah, because he had first of all, he had a baby stroller in the middle of the road, so there's a baby in it, so that's not particularly safe. And then when people would be coming past, he would be annoyed.
The mom was holding the baby. The mom was holding the baby.
Well, it could have been. It could have been twins. It could have been twins. I mean, there was that thing of like people would be coming past and like slowing down, and he was looking annoyed, as if to say, "Well, why are you slow?" I'm sorting out my baby stroller. It's like, yeah, not in the middle of the road, mate. Anyway, maybe we took that photo just to cheer me up.
Huge digression here. Huge digression.
Anyway,
okay, we killed some time. We killed some time wandering around. We made it back to again, Philip, amazing that you sent Aileen there on our first trip to the Jazz Keys, because the place is called Rokudenashi. It's a classic.
Well, hang on a minute. I've just realized I made a mistake. So we're on our way to this place that Donald discovered, which I also recommended to Aileen, but I've just realized from looking at, I got so distracted by the photographs of you holding that record that we actually didn't go to that place first. So we were kind of on our way. That was the last place that we were heading in Kyoto before returning to Osaka. But as you say, we took a detour to, I think we'd already been, and we'd been told in no uncertain terms by just a random man in the staircase smoking that it wasn't open yet. And then we were going back to Rokudenashi, right, to start with.
Yes, that is correct. And I realized as we went up the steps that, as I've mentioned throughout this Kansai trip, I used to spend 2, maybe 3 trips a year down in Osaka with my wife's grandmother. We would go visit, the whole family would go. So at the time I'd gone around to so many Kansai joints. This is a long time. This is 12, 13 years ago. So I had been once on one of my drunken wanders through Kyoto into Rokudenashi, but I didn't have any notes on it, and I had really no memory at all of it. So when we walked in, immediately the sensation immediately was one of those sensations like, okay, this is the Kyoto version of, like, what would you say? Like, I have in the notes, it's basically like the Kyoto version of Shiramuren or
I mean, it's not a million miles away. It's not a million miles away from Pithecanthropus either, to be honest. Like, I mean, I think...
Yeah,
I mean, Pithecanthropus looks relatively sort of tidy compared to Rokudenashi, I would say, which is saying something. But I had no memory of it because when I went on that trip that I mentioned in the last episode to Kyoto, I had also gone here, but it was closed. So the only kind of record I had of it to this point was a photograph of the door on my phone. So like just the sign on the door at Rokudenashi. So I knew it was kind of a legendary place. I knew it was very much up our street in terms of the aesthetics. But I was really excited 100%. To finally get to it as well,
And we got there just in time because, when we walked in, I mean, again, it's one of the smallest places. It's insanely cluttered. And I think it only seats about 8. Maybe you could crowd in 10, but pretty much 8 seats.
Well, we actually found out, didn't we? Because when we came in, there was a couple of young women sitting at the far end of the bar, and there was you and I at the door. And I would say there was 2 seats between us and them. And then there's a couple of tables that there's probably like, you're probably about
one
10.
Table, yeah.
But by the time we left, I mean, it was basically full, right? Do you remember? Because I remember at one point an older Japanese guy coming in, he was sort of like, had that expression on his face, like, what the, I can't even get a seat here.
Yeah, and it is just one of these places that, again, we're in the center, of Kyoto, kind of a nice area, a lot of places to eat, a lot of famous spots, and then you just walk up these steps, and again, you're right back into the 1970s. Now, the website says. It's interesting because it says about Rokudenashi, and it says, it's our 40th anniversary. So clearly they've not updated the website since 2018 because the 40th anniversary was in 2018. It was opened in 1978. So, obviously they've not been doing koshin, as they say in Japanese here, or updating the blog or the info. But yeah, opened in 1978, which surprised me. It feels even older. It feels more like a 1960s type of place, and it certainly doesn't look like it's been cleaned up since 1960s. I mean, it was dusty, dirty, dark, tons of bric-a-brac all around, but also like a ton of records behind the counter, of which, Philip, do you remember? Because I have in the notes what was playing, though, when we sat down at about 4 o'clock.
Yes. I mean, when you tell me, I will, because then we went into a tangent with that. Who I've actually seen quite recently in a few record shops in the Japanese jazz section, but it's more kind of almost like Japanese, like chanson kind of. Do you remember who I'm talking about as well?
Yeah.
It was actually the women at the bar. I think they requested, or it felt like they had come across this person like online somehow, like on TikTok or whatever, and then they were sort of like, "Oh yeah, can we listen to that?" And he put it on. It was not my cup of tea, but
it was not at all. I've got here old Japanese folk album, actually from the 60s. Not enthused. That's all I've got there.
Yeah. Well, so what was playing when we came in? It was jazz though, right?
No. So the first album that was playing when we came in was a kind of, again, it was a sort of like a 60s rock album. We only just caught like the last song of it, a Japanese group. And so I think I gathered from it that because of those two young women who were not Japanese, that they were sort of on a sort of a 1960s Showa, like bunka, culture type of, vibe, where they knew some of the artists in the scene back there, and this, he just happened to have that in the collection. And it was interesting too, because the guy behind the counter, he's not the owner. The owner, Yokota-san, is much, much older. Yokota-san's, I think he's a drummer, kind of a guy in the Kyoto scene, and he wasn't there today, but that would have been his generation's music, so he would have had these original albums in there alongside all of the jazz, the sort of Japanese folk and counterculture scene. He clearly had a bunch of different records, and it kind of also ties into the name, because Rokudenashi, the meaning of it in Japanese, it kind of means like the rough translation would be a bum or like a layabout, but it's a kind of a word that would have been used at that time for like those kind of 60s kids that didn't work and just sort of hung around, at college, or, the hippies or whatever. The whole counterculture was a way of using that as a word of pride, So that's why the name sort of makes perfect sense in that time period, in that location in Kyoto near all the universities. That would have been like the vibe that Yokota-san was living in, So it all ties into the name of the joint, the atmosphere of the place, and these sort of 60s folk and Japanese rock records, which I will admit as well, just didn't do it for me one bit. Not my scene at all.
Well, we did get some. We're just really showing up our lack of knowledge here, because I can't find that name. I thought I'd photographed it, but I'm sure someone listening will know it instantly who we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's sort of, like if you let the imagination run wild, to me it kind of fulfills that like mental picture I have of the, what it would be like sitting in a jazz kisa in the kind of countercultural 60s. I mean, it just has this incredible atmosphere. And we did get some jazz. I noticed there's like a Diz and Bird album was put on eventually as well. So we did hear a bit. But what was kind of more kind of interesting was the way. Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we were sat right by the edge of the counter beside a payphone, which presumably I wouldn't be surprised still works, but not. It wasn't so much the payphone. It was the half-lit cigarette, which to all intents and purposes looked like a joint, but knowing Japan's strict drug policies, we suspect was probably just a roll-up cigarette. But it was never really clarified, like who it belonged to. Was it one for just everyone to just have a go if you wanted? There was like a burnt match just beside it. And like, we were sort of a bit confused by that. But then, I don't know if you remember, the two young women at the counter, then they turned around and started talking to us, and we were kind of chatting about what we were doing. And then there was a very awkward moment where she mentioned something about a photograph, and and I said to you, "Oh, are you okay to be photographed?" And then we both sort of went, "Okay, fine." And then actually she was like, "No, I just want to photograph your T-shirt." Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
So we were like fixing our hair. It was like, "Yes, okay, if you must." And then she was like, "No, not you, just your T-shirt," because I was wearing that Coltrane T-shirt.
You know, that's so funny. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I did forget that. Because so I mentioned in the beginning when you just popped in to check the photography, and I wandered off to Family Mart to try to get a Genki drink, because I was hitting my crash in the afternoon, and being Kyoto on a nice spring day with that big event going on too, where we were, Philip, I couldn't even get inside Family Mart. Like, there was like a line coming out of like the whole street. You know how those intersections are in Kyoto, right? With the tourists, like you can barely even cross. So I remember like not even getting into Family Mart, starting to be very grumpy, and then making the big mistake to order a beer in Rokutanashi. So without my afternoon nap or pick me up, I started dozing off about halfway through the bottle, and it was a big bottle too that came out. Right, I think you had a beer as well, because I didn't think we wanted to get coffee in there, and so I was feeling a little dopey, and so with that photo, I totally thought it was the same thing. Like, she wanted to take our picture. It was just like, no, it was just your T-shirt. That was just really funny. And I think that the one who was taking the picture, she seemed to have a rather professional setup. Right, we did notice that wasn't just a tourist camera. It looked like she was a proper photographer.
Yeah, she had a decent camera. Yeah, camera wars. Yeah, she had a decent camera. So did I by that point, famously, because I'd had to. You don't want me to do the whole camera story again.
We've heard about ad nauseum.
It's really bugging me. I've found it's Maki Asakawa.
There we go. Yes.
And interestingly, she's sort of described as a jazz and blues singer, although she was associated with Japan's underground music scene, which often incorporated folk and other genres. And I think, definitely the stuff that was being played was on the folkier singer-songwriter-y side of things, but very very kind of 60s, very distinct aesthetic in terms of like these kind of black and white album covers, very striking. And funnily enough, it's one of those things that I wasn't particularly aware of her, but then since that day, more recently looking through record bins and some of my trips, in the Japanese sections, I've actually noticed a few of her albums popping up as well. But then, like, once we'd spoken to them, then they kind of went back to their conversation. We were just chatting, as you said, you were slipping in and out of consciousness, but people started to fill in, and there was another couple then came and sat right beside
a young
us
couple too,
who were on a date.
They looked like they were
really young
or something. Yeah, which was again like kind of like, okay, that's really cool, because if you just again, I've still got that kind of like bias where I would think like you're never going to find young people in a place like Rokutanashi. It's just too cluttered, too ferociously smoky, and quite loud, but they came in and looked completely like at ease, probably again regulars, maybe they go to the university nearby, sat down sort of in the middle seats at the counter and just started ordering their drink in, and without any hesitation. It was really cool to see that.
And then, like, the back seats also, I think there was a non-Japanese couple come in and they sat down. There was also weirdly another, I think they were French couple came in and sat down, and then for whatever reason it didn't take their fancy. I don't know whether it was the smokiness, unlikely if they're French, but or the price of the drinks. And just for context, I mean, again, you're looking at like sort of €3 or €4 for a beer. So I mean, okay, people maybe traveling on a budget, maybe it's not too expensive for their taste compared to like a convenience store or whatever, but they kind of left again, but it filled up again. So by the time we left, it was basically full, which is not saying much because only about 10 seats, and incredibly smoky, and like it's one of those things, those places where you lose all sense of time, right? Because you come out and, and it's like bright outside, and you're like, oh, okay, it's still daytime.
Light. There's no natural light. You have no idea what time it is. I don't think there's been fresh air in there since they opened 40 years ago, and you kind of like enter this sort of like dream haze. And I mean, it's absolutely lovely, especially because I was sitting at the sort of like like the extreme corner seat, and you're just looking up, and I've got some pictures of that. You look up, and all of a sudden you see that even on the ceiling, there are posters and album covers and flyers. Like every single bit of the shop is covered in something, but it's dark, so you've got to really squint to see everything. And then, yeah, you mentioned a payphone, and then amazingly, on the right, sort of like on the opposite wall above the little table, he's selling a bunch of T-shirts, and so you and I jumped right on it.
Best ever T-shirt. Possibly.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Apart from Lifetime, my favorite T-shirt of all time is the one from Lifetime Miyazaki. It's heavyweight. It sits nicely. It's such a good T-shirt. I wish I'd bought another one. But
yeah, you never miss an opportunity to brag about the Lifetime T-shirt that I did not buy when I visited.
It did occur to me there. I should have bought you one.
I'm just going to go put on my Miyazaki Dolphy T-shirt right now in revenge for that, since you'll never go to those. With the Rokudenashi T-shirt. So remember, I mentioned what Rokudenashi means in Japanese. So on the T-shirt is the Chinese characters for baka, which means fool or idiot. And but it's ba on the front and ka on the back. And so when I was wearing it, my son just looked at me. He's like, "Dad, what are you wearing that T-shirt for? People are going to look at you funny on the street, right?" And I was like, "Well, they kind of look at me funny anyway in this neighborhood, so I don't think that's a problem." But I explained to him.
Yeah, I mean, if I had been explaining that, I would have said it's got the characters for deer and horse, which read as ba and ka, which is confusing because you're like, why would you want a T-shirt with those on it? But actually, it means baka, which is stupid. Yeah. But maybe you're kind of proving that point just by the way you told that story.
Well, it was great. It was great. I was just worried that when I said, can we get those T-shirts, that he was just going to take the ones that were hanging up there that it probably had like 10 years worth of.
You would never have got the smell of
smoke and whiskey fumes on it. Yeah, but no, he pulled out some wrapped ones from under the counter. I think it was the last ones he had too. And then, of course, after the beer, I went into and this is generous, I would say the Japanese style bathroom that was half the size of an airplane bathroom. I mean, you could barely get in there. Barely. It was that small. So, and again, like with the plumbing from that old Showa era, that was quite the fun experience. So, but Rokutenashi
you have to sort of like. You have to kind of, it's like when, when you wrap yourself in a curtain when you're trying to hide, like that's the way you go into those bathrooms. You sort of walk in and then you kind of turn around and pull the door closed behind you. And then you have to sort of reverse back out the same way because they're so narrow. Like some of them, you literally can't turn around, right? It's like, I mean, they're just crazy spaces.
It's unbelievable. And maybe the most fantastical or unbelievable thing about Rokudenashi is that even with all that we just described here, that how narrow it is, how small, how cluttered, they do live sessions there. It's impossible to think that they do that, but they do. They do live sessions there about once or twice a month. So I have, I don't know how they finance it. I'm assuming that maybe they just put in like a charge of like 3,000 yen or something. So, because if you're only getting 6 or 7 customers, you have no guarantee that they're going to be drinking a lot. You've got to somehow be able to pay the musicians and, make your daily fee. But yeah, Rokudenashi on their website, they'll list a, live event maybe, once every month or so. Obviously only like a duo can get in there, no drums. But it's a classic place. It's just got that amazing Showa vibe. And I have a feeling because of the location and the fact that, look, the one random afternoon we were there and most of the customers were either overseas tourists or, like we said, that sort of like younger Japanese couple, I think that they're in no danger of closing. They seem to have a regular customer base coming in.
Oh yeah, and it's like it's also like you said, it's down that really buzzy area by the canal. You're never going to be short of customers, whether into jazz or not. And there is, I think, looking in there in particular, you can see evidence of this kind of Showa retro trend, at least, however long it lasts, where people are kind of harking back. I mean, it's kind of, I guess, the not dissimilar to the whole kind of revival of analog culture outside of Japan too, where people are into stereos again and into records and flip phones and Game Boys and all these kind of things. I know that's not analog, but just taking a step back from this kind of connectivity. So it's kind of interesting to see.
It's also interesting to see because we've talked about that from the sort of international perspective. But even in Japanese, like when I was looking around some of the comments on Rokudenashi in Japanese, on the Japanese TripAdvisor, and a lot of them are exactly what you just said. It was, like sort of maybe younger people or maybe people in their 20s or 30s who are like, oh, this looks like the kind of place that like my uncle told me he used to go to, or, those kinds of comments. And it's sort of like they walked, one person had written like, I've walked by here like 500 times. I'm from Kyoto. I would never have gone in because it looked gross. And then they went in and found that it was like a really lovely experience. So, that is a great thing to see that there's a younger Japanese sort of demographic also getting in there. So,
and so on to arguably one of the more and most mysterious experiences that we've had, like stepping from, I don't know, like stepping from sort of like the set of Chinatown onto like a kind of a Kubrick, like a Kubrick film set. It was absolutely, we came out of this place, and it's the place that I referenced right at the start that Donald had stumbled upon and mentioned to me, and a fairly newly opened place. And we came out from this place, possibly also because of the amount of alcohol that had been consumed at this point, but absolutely buzzing. And I'm just going to take you through my memory of it, because one of the most mysterious things was when we arrived at the building to visit Chetty, you seemed to disappear for quite some time. And I don't know what happened, but actually, in hindsight, it worked out really, really nicely, because I went up in the lift, or the elevator for our international listeners, and you came up, I think, the stairs, but it seemed, at least at the time, like it was a very long time.
Well, you're leaving out you're leaving out a key point due to your eternal shame, that for one of the first times in our 10-year, no, I do sometimes take an elevator, but for one of the first times in our 10-year journey together, a miracle happened. Maybe because I did just go on a long discourse about the Rokudenashi bathroom.
You didn't need to go to the toilet.
I did not need to go. You obviously missed out on the airplane bathroom at Rokudenashi. So by the time we walked from there to Chetty, you were starting to get a little jumpy. And then we couldn't find it. So there was a couple, 5 more minutes. And so when we got there, I think you... for some reason, I thought it was like the 3rd floor. So I was like, okay, I always take the steps because I'm trying to get my exercise in. And turned around and you were just gone. And I was like, oh, where the hell did he go? And then and there was just a little bit of confusion. So I was like, okay, let me run up. And I ran up the steps and went to the wrong floor. And so that's what took me about going up and down, maybe just 7-8 minutes to go back down and then eventually get up to Chetty, which I think is on the 4th floor. So you beat me in there and had already made your greetings to the wonderful master.
Well, this was the great thing, because so basically I got to the door and I went in, and I mean, you'll see from the pictures if you haven't been to Chetty, but I mean, how do you even describe this place? It's basically a Japanese apartment, and it's the diametric opposite of Rokudenashi.
In every way possible, yes.
Yeah, so basically you come in, it's a white room, there is a large wooden counter with 5 or 6 stools. On the left-hand side, further down the room, there's 4 boxes of records, which are all covered with this kind of linen, kind of hemp linen cloth, so to hide whatever furniture they're based on. Then there's a kind of a fake stone wall at the back end of the room, and this kind of laminate floor, and then these 2 gorgeous speakers, which also have a sort of appearance of the kind of patio outdoor heaters that you get in a lot of restaurants.
Well, yeah, exactly. And they're very, very tall. I've got the notes. They are, for our audio friends listening, they're American made Martin Logan SL3 speakers. Yeah. And the combination of that sort of like fake brick wall with these tall speakers with the wooden casing and the soft, I mean, you say it's a white room, but it's very softly sort of like almost orangey lit, so it's a very warm lighting when you walk in, but completely spare. The counter is huge, but it's completely like flat and empty. There's really not much on it. And it's just got this, behind the counter, you've got, again, boxes of records, the records that she actually plays. And above that, 2 shelves with, I guess, maybe 30 or 40 coffee mugs and saucers, but each one is individually made.
Sorry. We had this conversation in Chetty, and I think you said, I don't know which mug, and I had to correct you. These are not mugs. Okay, these are cups and saucers. Okay,
here we go. Here we go with the tea, tea and saucer.
This is not your diner. This is not your filter coffee in a diner and a mug, mate. This is cups and saucers.
If you drink tea or coffee out of it, it's a mug. It's got a little holder for your thumbs. It's a mug. Okay, they're beautiful in any case. Cups, to me, a cup is what I put water in to give my daughter when she's 2 years old.
That's a glass.
That's a cup. Okay.
Anyway,
they were beautiful. They're all handmade. They're all individually
I'm not
designed.
sure they were handmade. Why do you say they're handmade?
I got it in the notes. They're handmade. It's handmade pottery. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
so you got that, but you're determined to call them mugs. Unbelievable.
This is why it was a whole big thing. Like we were even skipping ahead of ourselves because before the teacup.
Well, yeah, hang on. Let's before we get to tea and coffee.
We have to describe what happened when we walked in because again, the bar is named Chetty, by the way, after Chet East's Lullaby from Chet Baker. But what we discovered when we met the master, who is of indeterminate
Wait a minute. You're jumping ahead because I'm not even in the room yet. Because we were describing the room, so I've just opened the door, and now you're jumping ahead to talking to the master. So what order are we doing this story in?
That just shows our great preparation for today's episode. You have already beamed me into the room and taken your shoes off.
Yes. So when I opened the door, she came rushing out from the counter with no mask on, and she's wearing this kind of, again, just like, I feel like only Japanese women can get away with this, but this very kind of cool, like she could just as easily be backstage on a theater or working in a temple, this kind of like loose kind of jacket with these cool baggy trousers. And she comes out and she says, "Oh, hello," and straight away in English. And I thought, okay, I was like, I feel like this one is going to be one of these ones that we really got to tread quite carefully. So straight away I went into, she said, "Oh, you have to take your shoes off." And I said, "Oh," in Japanese, I said, "Oh yes, of course, I know that. Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely." I made sure I lined them up really nicely, which I don't remember you doing, but anyway, lined them. I think I said, "Do you line up your shoes when you came in like a child?" But anyway, so she came out and then she was like, "Oh, you speak Japanese, da 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 da." And this is where it was so weird because like you still had not arrived at this time. So I managed to get up on the counter and I thought this is again one of these ones where like if we don't move quickly, you could just miss the opportunity. So I went straight into like, "Oh, I don't know if you remember, but a couple of friends of mine came here like a few months ago." And she remembered Aileen. I said, "Oh, it's an older woman. She's from Northern Ireland. I'd recommend she come here." And she, "Oh, yes. Da, 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 da." And she happily had mentioned Tokyo Jazz Joints. So when I said that, she was like, "Oh, okay, yes, I remember that." Da, da, da. And straight away, it was just one of those situations where like you were in already. And it was like, okay, this is good. But then I noticed with horror on the bar, there was this sign that said, no photographs, no filming on any device. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's going to be
and
that's going to be interesting."
We've righted the ship sequentially, yes, because that's when I came in, not knowing that you had made that greetings already and sort of gotten in, because that same sign was outside in the little entryway. Okay, when I came up the steps, there was a sign there, and it was both in Japanese and English. So immediately my thought was like, "Oh, shoot, did Philip see this?" And we're not going to get any pictures in here, So when I came in, I actually, as she sort of like then went behind the counter to do something, and I said to you like, "Man, did you see the sign out there? It's no good." And you were like, No, it should be okay. I'm already talking to her about it. So it was like, oh, whew, okay. But it was the kind of feeling immediately from the sign and just the sort of spareness of the place. Before I had even talked to her, I thought like, oh, we might not get any pics of this. This is just going to happen.
Yeah, but then you weren't aware of this. So then there was a point where I literally kind of like dug my elbow into your side because I could hear you were about to say something about it, and I was like, "No, It's sorted. And yeah, because we'd had that conversation, and then I think what happened was we said to her, oh, so how come? And weirdly, she said, oh, until like 2 days ago, it was absolutely fine. But she just very mysteriously, that kind of Japanese way, said, oh, there was some trouble between a couple of customers, which again, just like begged more questions.
Well, it was yesterday. It was the day before.
It was the day before, yeah. So something had happened between...
Yesterday, exclamation point, and then in Japanese, toraboru ga atte, korekara shashin wa kinshi. So no photos now because of the trouble yesterday, but she didn't go into what the trouble was. And so we were, immediately our thoughts went to,
totally mysterious.
Some drunken foreign tourist in the wrong place, definitely wrong environment.
It might not necessarily have been...
that's just my prejudice against tourists. So you immediately said like it could have been. We don't have no idea what it could have been. Taking a picture of another customer, or as we found, perhaps taking a picture just of the place and she happened to be in the frame because she very clearly said that she didn't want her photograph taken.
She basically said she had said, look, because we'd had, the great thing was because we'd had, this is the worst story we've ever told, but basically because we'd had that conversation before you arrived, she kind of said to me, or then when we said, when she mentioned this trouble, and then I remember her sort of saying, but obviously it's okay if you want to take some, just don't take me, which was it was like happy days because she was in and out of the kitchen, so you could take photographs, but I just feel like that's not in the spirit of it's always about getting permission. It's always about it being okay, and so I don't want to be doing that. And if I did, it would only be really for my own reference. I've just noticed in my notes I got to choose my cup, which James called a mug. So yeah, I even noticed it then. So basically, then we got chatting to her, and again, her English was incredible. She had this insane collection of records, like all very curated, very rare, and she talked away to us extensively in English.
Deep records. I've got in the notes some European jazz from Denmark and Sweden. From a couple musicians who I'd not even heard of before. Then also she even had some real current stuff too. She had this Celine McLaurin Savant album, which I was like, oh, okay, so she's this is not just your traditional jazz kissa style place, and her collection is very, very contemporary. I mean, it makes sense. She's only open. I've got it here open 2021, which is interesting. Again, like right in the COVID depths where nobody was even visiting from outside Japan, so it was tough time to open probably, but she's made it for the 4 years since then. The collection was great, and she also asked us, she's like, well, please tell me, I make a request, whatever you'd like to hear on the system, and we were like, woohoo.
Well, the whole thing was like choose your own adventure, because you get to choose the records, you get to choose your speakers, because she said, do you want to hear them on the Martin Logans or do you want to hear them on the Tannoys behind the bar? And then you also get to choose your own cup. So when you order your drink, she's like, which cup would you like? And you're like, that one fourth across that looks very similar to the one next to it. And the whole thing is very sort of, it's just a very curated, very interesting experience. And more mysteriously than that, yes, she would not, we did ask her name for a reference, but she said, just call me Chetty-san. She also, I did clarify with her about the opening hours, because basically she's only open for 4 hours a day. She opens for 2 hours and then rests for an hour and then opens for another 2 hours. And I sort of said to her, how come you have this kind of setup? And she said, well, I just like to have a rest. It's quite tiring. Okay, and then, like, you're looking around, like no part of the experience feels tiring. Like, so
no, not in the least. And also, this is not like to go long throwback. Birdland in Kitasenju, where the master takes a 2 to 3 hour break between the lunchtime and the evening set, because he's I think he's in his late 70s. Chetty-san, again, first of all, kind of impossible to guess her age, because she put her mask back on, and Philip, do you remember this? I have it in the notes. She even said, she said she wouldn't give her name. She said, call me Chetty-san. And then she said, well, I don't show my face and I don't use my real name. And when she said that, I think we both were sort of like, okay, so it's going to be like that then, So she had a very clear sort of vibe about, like, I run this place, and it's, I really want the customers to come, but I'm not giving you any of my any of my background. And we were just completely sort of like perplexed. It was like, okay, well, your English is that good. And you've got this amazing shop with this collection and this speaker system, and the design of the place would have cost thousands of dollars. Okay. There was just so much more I wanted to ask. And, but yeah, I think it was, once she said that, it was pretty clear that we're like, okay, we weren't going to get a lot of like personal chat, but she was very chatty anyway, though, about the project and asking about like where we lived and this and that, you know, and then about the drinks. Philip, do you have, again, I've got it in the notes. Do you remember what you did have to drink in your specially chosen cup/mug?
Yeah. I think I had, it was something like the adult hot chocolate.
Yes, you had the Otonano hot chocolate.
Which sounds like, I mean, adult hot chocolate could be read in very many ways depending on the environment. But yeah, it was basically, I think, like a really nice kind of rich hot chocolate with, I think it had brandy in
I think
it
was brandy. Yeah, it definitely was brandy. I just stuck with the beer, but yeah, you had that. And it took her a good 10 minutes for you for her to bring it out to you.
Well, so everything's done it's like Uncle Tom. Everything's just done with this level of precision. But I mean, it's a strange one because, again, like you say, I mean, and not that we need any personal information particularly, it's just purely out of interest, but but incredibly friendly and very chatty and, like, you know, talked away in English. And the thing that I remember the most is her English. And we were sort of saying, oh wow, you know, your English is so good. How come, like, where did you learn? Like, it's so good. And she just went and then moved on to another thing. Yeah, and like, there was even that, we couldn't even get that information. Nothing was forthcoming.
You weren't going to get that. And there were other questions that I had, and looking back at some of the pictures now. So, like, you know, we mentioned that it's, you know, look, it's a beautifully designed space and it's spacious. There's a lot of room between the counter and that back wall, but there's only those 6 seats. So it's very clear that she wants, and with that, with the 6 seats and the minimum opening hours, she clearly wants to keep it at a certain sort of pace, which is fine. You know, with those other places that we've been to like that. But I would have wanted to ask more about that. Like, okay, what is it, the concept that you want here? Is it this sort of like salon with these fancy drinks, or is it the audio and you want people who are just here to appreciate the audio so it doesn't get crowded and noisy, this, that, and the other. But it just didn't feel like that she would open up that way. I've got in the note. Well, no, I'm not going to share what I wrote in the notes next. Let's just say that.
Do that.
Let's just share. Yeah, I'm not going to share that. Let's just say that she had an air of mystery about her. We didn't get to ask. I wrote it down. You know, she had a gigantic collection of swing journal. Swing journal is sort of it's now not published anymore. It's the downbeat, basically, of Japan, and it goes back for decades. And she had, I mean, hundreds of editions of Swing Journal along the window. So she's obviously a huge jazz fan. I don't know whether she inherited that, because she certainly wasn't old enough to have some of those copies from the 50s and 60s. You know, she would have had to purchase that at some point, whether it came from a family member or somebody else ran a jazz kisa. There's so many different possibilities about Chetty-san and how she built this place and got into jazz. But yeah, we never got that part of the story.
Yeah, but we did get this story, which we told incredibly clumsily, but which I think forms a nice counterpoint to just how incredibly smooth and clean and ordered the Chetty was itself. So maybe there's something in that. But yeah, I mean, I just think it was such an interesting and just such a characteristic combination of two places, you know, to go from Rokudenashi to Chetty. Like, you could not imagine two more different places, and yet, you know, both of them feature all the things that we kind of expect to find in these kind of jazz kisa, and both are doing the exact same thing in their own very unique way. And I mean, to meet her was fascinating. Just to see that place, to think that somewhere like that can be run just for 4 hours a day. We were absolutely just buzzing when we came out, and you know, we're still only at about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, I think. So we headed back to Osaka, and we picked up a couple of other places which we're going to talk about in episode 96. And one is an old favorite, but I think it kind of threw up a lot of conflicting emotions for us. My first note on it is just So we'll pick that up in episode 96 back in Osaka, where we finish off day 2 of this trip.
One last quick note about Chetty. Shout out to filmmaker Christopher from Oakland, who was in town a couple weeks ago for a film project that he's doing some research on. His first trip to Japan, he went down to Kansai. I gave him a whole list of places, not thinking he'd get to all of them. He got to almost all of them, including Chetty, and he just texted me and said, had an absolutely wonderful experience at Chetty with a wonderful conversation. And he put in his text as well, with the mysterious Ms. Chetty. So obviously she didn't share her name with him either, but he was glowing and raving about the place. He also went to Rokudenashi. Like a lot of our American visitors, did not last long. He said he got smoked out pretty quickly. He loved it, but he didn't stay long. So, but good
if you're not used to that.
Good to see that people getting down there and having that sort of experience, and again, like you said, Philip, the fact that we went to those places back to back on the same day, literally one after the other, just remarkable, and showing the full range of this jazz joint experience that we've been having. I absolutely an amazing afternoon.
Here. And on that note, I'll see you next time for episode 96.
Episode 96 with plenty more mug and cup talk coming your way. Take it easy, buddy.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
It's all about the crockery. Bye.